Hello, movie health community. I want to play a game.
I don't know how good that's going to turn out. I've been struggling with allergies and a persistent cough. Anyway, welcome to Movie Health Community, the internet's #1 source for health warnings at the movies. As always, keep in mind that nothing posted by Movie Health Community is medical advice, and none of it has been reviewed by medical professionals. Saw X, or Saw 10, I am not sure which to call it, so I'm just going to call it Saw X. The 10th Saw movie, the 10th chapter in this celebration of blood and gore. Is Saw X safe for photosensitive viewers? No, it is not. I am so sorry to tell you. The opening shot of Saw X is a very intense strobe effect, and there is frequent use of harsh, flickering fluorescent lights in very dark environments, creating a strobe effect. There are also a few of the rapid edits that are normal to the series that may cause a bit of a strobe effect, but for strobe lights, we've got to give this movie a 9 out of 10. The only reason it's not getting a 10 out of 10 is because a lot of the scenes that you're here to see, the blood and the gore, most of them don't actually have strobe effects on them. But a lot of the stuff in between all the sequences of the blood and the gore and the traps do have some of these flickering lights. As for motion, the camera motion is always pretty smooth. There are a few instances of the really rapid orbiting shots that we've seen before in the Saw series. And then for mental health, this movie's a little bloody. And by a little, I'd say it may rival It Chapter 2 in its use of fake blood. I don't know how it'll compare exactly, but It Chapter 2 has used the most fake blood of any movie in history. And this movie does challenge that a little bit. As always, this is a very gory movie. Like, you're going to see some actors acting like they're in a lot of pain. So if that's something you prefer to avoid, probably best to avoid the Saw series altogether. Of course, there's kidnapping, because people have to be kidnapped to be put in these traps. And this movie deals with someone having a terminal illness. That's a trigger we've been requested to include in our evaluations, is whenever that happens. Now, is this movie any good? It's not really fair to compare this movie to horror classics like Nightmare on Elm Street or It or anything like that, or Alien, one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Not fair to compare it to that. Definitely fair to compare it to the rest of the Saw movies. Now, when you compare it to most of the Saw movies, this is easily one of the best ones. And the unique thing that this movie does, as opposed to the other ones, is it kind of switches the role of protagonist and antagonist. So this movie actually follows Jigsaw, the John Kramer character, and uses him as the protagonist, and really doesn't do anything to make the victims of the traps the protagonists. So that's definitely a good twist on the Saw formula, and it really works for this movie. So all of the Saw movies deal with unlikable protagonists who you may not really care whether or not they survive the traps or not. In fact, a lot of the times they go so despicable with these characters that you actually start to cheer a little bit when they fail in their traps. And you start to wonder who exactly you're supposed to root for. And so having this movie use Jigsaw as the protagonist, while he is a pretty terrible person, it really works. The surprising thing that this movie did is it gave Tobin Bell a lot to do. Like, I'd say this movie kept him busier than any of the other Saw movies have. I don't know what it is about Tobin Bell. He just plays this frail, sickly person so well that you forget that he's just acting. And so he's actually a really tough actor, and you got to give him props for that. There is a mid-credits scene, just so you know. I am going to give Saw X a B. And I'd say the only other Saw movie that I would give that grade is the original first one. Thank you so much to our readers on Tumblr and Facebook, and an extra special thanks to our patrons over on our Patreon page, whose names are scrolling across the screen right now. We have opened up our Patreon shop. So 8 of the 10 flashing lights warning tracks that have been made so far are now available for purchase for $3.99 a piece. on our Patreon shop. The only two that are not available are the ones that are already available for free on our Patreon page. So be sure to click the pinned post on our Patreon page to find links to our flashing lights warning tracks for Hocus Pocus 2 and Top Gun Maverick. And the rest are now available for purchase with or without a Patreon account through our Patreon shop. As always, stay safe at the movies.